For 60 years, humanity played by the rules. They filled out the forms. They smiled at poorly translated jokes. They nodded politely during endless diplomatic sessions where sulfur-breathing jellyfish debated mining rights with the gravitas of a tax hearing. They were patient, respectful, quiet. Because in the Galactic Union, that's how a new species survived. You acted like the eager intern in a galaxy-wide bureaucracy that made Earth's worst government agency look like a weekend bake sale. And humans, those clever apes who stumbled into faster-than-light travel using a chaotic invention called the Drayton engine, were grudgingly allowed in. Not because anyone admired them, but because no one thought they posed a threat. Vega Station was the political heart of the Union, a circular monstrosity of mirrored corridors and cold light conference halls where 42 species jockeyed for power using pheromones, pulse language, or multi-limbed hand gestures that required their own instruction manual. Amid all of this, the ambassador from Earth arrived just as he always did, well-groomed, composed, and smiling with the practiced poise of a man who'd survived both tax season and PDA meetings. He took his seat, folded his hands calmly on the table, and glanced through the agenda, while quietly calculating how long he could fake interest before someone noticed he was mentally reciting Earth poetry. Across from him, a translucent, jellyfish-like creature floated in a methane-filled containment bubble. And so, it said through a translator, we request that the Krezar perform no fewer than 5 sacred dances before receiving mining clearance for the Delta cluster. To proceed otherwise would be spiritually offensive to our crystal ancestors. The ambassador smiled politely. Fascinating, he replied, while internally wondering if it was still possible to request a transfer back to Antarctica. For 60 years, humanity had done its best not to scare anyone. They downplayed their weapons, softened their language, shared innovations in medicine and agriculture while pretending they didn't notice the smirks or the whisper jokes about primitive monkey worlds. They were careful, diplomatic, safe. Because the Union's ancient powers hated one thing more than weakness: surprises. But what the Union failed to understand was that humanity wasn't built for infinite patience. You could only poke the sleeping wolf for so long. 60 years of being dismissed. 60 years of pretending bureaucracy was fairness. 60 years of watching their people die while aliens filed the correct paperwork. Today, that illusion shattered. Midway through the jellyfish's fourth poetic defense of ceremonial mining dances, the chamber's central hologram crackled to life. A towering figure appeared, armored, beetle-like, with mandibles clicking in smug rhythm, the supreme commander of the Krezar. The room fell into immediate silence. To the honorable members of the Union, the commander declared, its voice cold and metallic through the translator, we are pleased to report that human settlements in the Calyx system have been pacified. The operation was swift. Their resistance, predictably weak. The ambassador didn't move. His smile stayed. But his eyes hardened. Pacified? He asked, his tone neutral but sharp. Could you clarify what that means? The Krezar commander waved a clawed limb casually. We eliminated obstructions to resource acquisition. Civilian outposts were neutralized. We followed protocol. Form XR-19 was submitted and approved by the Union Resource Board. If your species failed to review the notice in time, that is your internal failure. Another delegate stepped forward, tall, multi-armed, nasal voice grating through a translator. A Fenrix bureaucrat. The Krezar are correct, it said. According to Section 872, Paragraph 14b, your government was notified through proper channels. Per Union regulation, member species must check their comms hubs at least once every 80 standard hours. The ambassador did the math. 3 Earth days, he murmured. A warning of imminent extermination buried among millions of other notifications. 3 days to discover a death sentence. The ambassador looked around the room. Dozens of alien faces, some smug, some indifferent, were nodding in agreement. Tentacles, ice talks, and shimmering gas sacks all confirming the procedure had been followed. 60 years of diplomacy. Of endurance. Of restraint. And it had earned humanity nothing but condescension and mass graves. This is the fourth human colony the Krezar have pacified this year, the ambassador said, voice colder now. Each time, you've hidden behind your forms. Each time we filed complaints, and each time, you buried them under more red tape. You call that civilization? The Krezar commander clicked its mandibles in amusement. Perhaps if your kind were better at navigating interstellar bureaucracy, you would not find yourselves so replaceable. Mocking laughter rose from across the chamber. The Horvath delegate, its gas-filled suit rippling, added a jab. Maybe you humans should spend less time breeding and more time reading forms. You're embarrassing yourselves just being here. The ambassador's jaw tightened. His hands, calmly resting on the table, curled slightly into fists. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small communications device. This is the Earth ambassador. Clearance code Delta 9, he said loudly, so the entire chamber could hear. Confirm destruction of Calyx colonies. Over 40,000 civilian casualties. Request immediate activation of Titan protocol. A short confirmation tone echoed from the device. He put it away. Slowly. Calmly. The chamber stared in silence. What was that? The Horvath sneered. One of your primitive tantrums? Going to cry now, little human. The ambassador looked up, smile gone. No, he said simply. That was me informing my government that we're done playing nice. The ambassador's words hung in the air, sharp and final, but the Vega station chamber didn't stay silent for long. Whispers and murmurs rippled through the delegates, some nervous, some dismissive. The high chair, the ancient Arvon perched on his gravity disk, raised a withered hand to quiet the room. Ambassador, he said, his voice creaking like old wood, you're upset, and that's understandable. But the Union thrives on order. Let's not throw that away over a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, the ambassador shot back, his calm cracking just enough to show the anger underneath. The Krezar wiped out 40,000 civilians, our people, and you're calling it a misunderstanding? That's 4 colonies this year, High Chair. 4. Each time, we've gone through your channels. Each time, we've been ignored or told it's our fault for not keeping up with your paperwork. The Krezar commander's hologram flickered, its mandibles clacking in a smug rhythm. We followed protocol, it said, its translator buzzing with arrogance. Form XR19 was filed and approved. If your species can't manage basic administration, that's not our problem. Maybe you're not cut out for the galaxy. The Fenrix delegate nodded, its 7 arms shuffling tablets. Exactly, it chimed in, its nasal voice grating. Section 872 is clear. You're required to monitor your comms hub. The notice was sent. You missed it. End of story. The ambassador's jaw tightened. He looked around, taking in the room, dozens of delegates from 42 species, all watching him. Some smirked, others just stared, but most seemed to agree with the Fenrix. 60 years of jumping through the Union's hoops, decades of biting their tongues while the galaxy's elite sneered at humanity's backward ways, and this was the result. They'd played nice, filed every form, smiled through every insult, and still got slapped with procedure as an excuse for slaughter. This isn't about missing a memo, he said, his voice low but cutting through the chatter. It's about you letting the Krezar attack us, over and over, and hiding behind your rules to justify it. We've been patient. We've been polite. But that ends today. The Horvath delegate, its gas-filled suit puffing up as it leaned forward, let out a loud, mocking laugh. Oh, please, it said, its voice dripping with scorn. What's this big, tough human going to do about it? Cry to your little planet and beg for help? Maybe you should have spent less time building those ugly colonies and more time learning how to read a damn form. You're embarrassing yourselves, and us, by even being here. The laugh turned into a wheezing cackle, and a few others joined in, their chuckles bouncing off the chamber walls. The ambassador's eyes narrowed, but he didn't flinch. That jab hit harder than he'd admit, 60 years of humanity swallowing pride, and now this gas bag was rubbing it in his face. He could feel the heat rising in his chest, but he kept it locked down. Not yet. Funny you say that, he replied, his tone icy. We've been embarrassing ourselves by pretending your system isn't a joke. But don't worry, we're about to change the conversation. Before anyone could respond, the Krezar commander cut in, its hologram looming larger. Enough of this, it snapped. You're wasting our time, human. Your colonies were in our way, resources we're entitled to under Union law. If you can't protect them, that's your weakness. Evolution doesn't reward whining. The ambassador locked eyes with the hologram, or as close as he could with those gleaming compound lenses. Entitled, he said. You murdered 40,000 people because you wanted some rocks. And you think that makes you strong? We'll see who's weak soon enough. The Horvath delegate snorted, its suit rippling. Big words from a species that barely crawled out of its mud puddle. What are you going to do, throw a tantrum? Stamp your feet? Go ahead, human. Give us a show. The mockery was loud now, echoing through the chamber, and more delegates smirked or nodded. The Thaler bubbled in amusement, its tentacles quivering. Even the Fenrix twitched its limbs, like it was enjoying the roast. The ambassador didn't bite. He dealt with worse than this back on Earth, parent-teacher meetings, tax audits, you name it. He took a slow breath and pulled out his COMM device again, holding it up so everyone could see. You want a show, he said, his voice steady. Fine. Let's make it official. He pressed a button, speaking clearly into it. This is the ambassador, Delta 9 clearance. Confirming Krezar aggression, 4 colonies destroyed, civilian losses in the tens of thousands. Titan protocol is active. Stand by for orders. A sharp beep answered, and he pocketed the device. The room went still again, but the Horvath wasn't done. What's that supposed to be? It sneered. Some primitive ritual? Are you praying to your gods now? Pathetic. It's not a prayer, the ambassador said, turning to face the Horvath directly. It's a signal. You'll figure out what it means soon enough. The high chair floated forward, his gravity disk humming. Ambassador, please, he said, sounding tired. This is getting out of hand. The Union can investigate the Krezar's actions. We'll form a committee. Next cycle, we can. Next cycle, the ambassador interrupted, his patience gone. Your committees don't stop bombs. They don't bring back the dead. We've waited long enough. He pointed at the Krezar commander's hologram. You've had your fun. You've pushed us, mocked us, killed our people, all while we've played by your rules. But here's the thing, we're not asking permission anymore. The Horvath laughed again, louder this time. Oh, this is rich. The human thinks he's in charge now. What's next, threatening us with your little toys? Go back to your dirt ball, monkey. You don't belong here. The ambassador didn't blink. Keep talking, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. You're about to find out what happens when we stop holding back. The chamber buzzed with tension now, not just amusement, but unease. A few delegates shifted uncomfortably, sensing something off. The Krezar commander's mandibles slowed, its confidence wavering for the first time. The ambassador stood tall, his smile gone, replaced by a look that promised trouble. Humanity had taken the hits, played the game, and swallowed the insults. But the leash was off now, and the galaxy was about to feel it. The ambassador's last words landed like a punch, and the Vega station chamber crackled with tension. The Horvath delegate's laughter faded into a wheezing huff, its gas-filled suit deflating slightly. The Krezar commander's hologram flickered, its mandibles twitching as if it wasn't sure whether to laugh or snap back. The high chair, still hovering on his gravity disk, tried to regain control. Ambassador, he said, his voice shaky, let's not escalate this. The Union can address your grievances. We'll schedule a hearing. A hearing, the ambassador cut in, his tone sharp enough to slice through the high chair's platitudes. You've had 4 chances to address this, 4 colonies, tens of thousands dead, and all we've gotten is excuses. Your hearings don't stop the Krezar from killing our people. They just give you something to talk about while we bury the bodies. The Krezar commander's eyes glinted, its voice buzzing through the translator. Your people shouldn't have built colonies in our resource zones, it said. We filed the forms. The Union approved. If you can't defend what's yours, that's not our fault. The ambassador stepped forward, his calm slipping into something harder. You think this is about forms? You slaughtered 40,000 civilians in Calyx, families, kids, because you wanted some more. That's not defense. That's murder. And you've done it 3 times before, each time hiding behind your damn paperwork while the Union looks the other way. The Fenrix delegate waved a tablet with one of its 7 arms. The process was followed, it said, smug as ever. You failed to respond to the notices. Section 872. Enough with Section 872, the ambassador snapped, his voice rising for the first time. Your rules don't justify genocide. We've played your game, filed complaints, waited for your committees, and it's gotten us nothing but more graves. That ends now. Before anyone could argue, a shrill alarm blared through the chamber. The central hologram shifted, replaced by a flashing alert from the Union's monitoring network. A robotic voice announced, emergency update, human colony in the Taryn system under attack by Krezar forces. Estimated casualties, 25,000. Destruction ongoing. The screen showed grainy footage, Krezar warships raining fire on a small, green planet, buildings collapsing, smoke rising. The room erupted. Delegates shouted over each other, some demanding explanations, others pointing at the ambassador like he'd caused it. The Krezar commander didn't flinch. Another lawful operation, it said, its mandibles clicking casually. We sent the notice last cycle. If you didn't see it, that's your problem. The ambassador stared at the hologram, then at the footage of Taryn burning. His hands clenched into fists, but his face stayed cold, calculated. You sent a notice, he said, his voice low and deadly, and then bombed a civilian world. Right now. While we're standing here. The Horvath delegate chuckled, its suit puffing up again. Maybe you should have checked your inbox, human. Sounds like you're just bad at this whole galaxy thing. A few others snickered, but the laughter felt forced now, edged with unease. The ambassador ignored the jab. He turned to the high chair. This is your Union, he said. A species attacks us, again, kills 25,000 more of our people, and you're all just watching. What's your plan? Another committee? More forms? The high chair hesitated, his ancient eyes darting around. We'll investigate, he said weakly. We can convene an emergency session. No, the ambassador said, cutting him off. He stepped to the center of the chamber, his voice ringing out, steady and clear. This is Earth's final warning, stop attacking our colonies, or we stop pretending to be weak. You've got one chance to end this, right now, or we'll show you what happens when we're done holding back. The Krezar commander laughed, a harsh, chittering sound. A threat? From humans? What are you going to do, yell at us? Throw your little ships at our fleet? This is adorable. The Horvath joined in, its wheezing cackle grating on everyone's nerves. Go ahead, monkey, it taunted. Show us your big, scary tantrum. The ambassador didn't blink. He pulled out his COMM device and checked the time. 45 seconds, he said, loud enough for the room to hear. That's how long you've got to decide. The Thaler delegate bubbled nervously. Decide what? It asked, its tentacles twitching. What's in 45 seconds? Your answer, the ambassador replied, pocketing the device. The chamber went quiet, all eyes on him, some mocking, some confused, a few starting to look worried. The Krezar commander's mandibles slowed, its confidence faltering just a hair. Then the screens flickered again. Every display in the chamber switched to a new feed, overriding the Union's controls. A stern face in an Earth military uniform appeared, Admiral Lorne, his jaw set, his eyes hard. "This is Admiral Lorne, Earth Defense Fleet," he said, his voice booming. "The Krezar's destruction of our colonies, Calyx, Taryn, and others, violates Union law, Section 1421, Paragraph 8. We've tried your diplomacy. It's failed. Earth is now invoking Article 19, the right to proportional response." The Fenrix delegate scrambled through its tablets. "There's no Article 19, it squeaked, its voice rising. "I've memorized the entire charter, 9,412 sections." "Check the appendix," the ambassador said coolly. "The one we added when we joined. The one none of you bothered to read because, and I quote, 'What could humans possibly add to galactic law?'" Admiral Lorne's face stayed on the screens. "Turn your sensors to the Krezar satellite in the Vorn system," he said. "Demonstration begins in 30 seconds. This is your only warning." The feed cut out, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The high chair's gravity disk wobbled. "Demonstration," he croaked. "What does that mean?" The ambassador crossed his arms. "It means you've pushed us too far. You've laughed, you've killed, you've ignored us. Now you get to see what happens when we stop asking nicely." The Krezar commander's hologram flickered, its voice sharp. "This is nonsense. You've got nothing, that can touch us." 30 seconds, the ambassador said, glancing at his watch again. Tick-tock. The chamber held its breath. The Horvax suit deflated slightly, its bravado fading. The Thaler's tentacles froze. Even the Fenrix stopped shuffling its tablets. The ambassador stood there, unflinching, as the countdown ran out. Humanity had taken the hits, played the fool, and stayed quiet. But the breaking point was here, and the galaxy was about to find out what that meant. The ambassador's tick-tock echoed in the dead silence of the Vega station chamber. The Krezar commander's mandibles froze mid-click, its compound eyes narrowing. The Horvac delegate let out a nervous wheeze, its gas-filled suit shrinking a little. The high chair's gravity disk hummed as he floated forward, his ancient voice trembling. "What do you mean, demonstration?" he asked, his eyes wide with panic. The ambassador didn't answer right away. He just stood there, arms crossed, watching the screens as the 30 seconds ticked down. Every display in the chamber flickered, showing a live feed from the Vorn system, a rocky, lifeless Krezar satellite orbiting one of their key worlds. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without a sound or warning, half the satellite vanished. No explosion, no flash, just gone. A perfect, glowing red semicircle was all that remained, the edges sizzling like molten metal. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted, gasped, or froze in place. The Thaler's tentacles flailed, knocking over a tray of drinks. The Fenrix dropped a tablet, its 7 arms shaking. The Horvac suit puffed up, then deflated completely, its bravado gone. The Krezar commander's hologram flickered, its voice cutting through the chaos. What was that?" it demanded, its translator struggling to keep up. "That," the ambassador said, his tone calm but edged with steel, "was a controlled demonstration device. One ship, one shot. The real stuff's a lot nastier. We've had it for 40 years Earth years, sorry, about 20 of your cycles. Never saw a reason to mention it. Didn't want to ruin the vibe." The high chair's mouth opened, then closed, his leathery skin paling. You destroyed a satellite?" "Just like that." "Half a satellite," the ambassador corrected, meeting his gaze. "We could have taken the whole thing or the planet it's orbiting. But we're not here to show off. We're here to make a point, stop attacking us, or next time, it's not a demo." The Krezar commander recovered fast, its mandibles snapping furiously. "This is an outrage," it roared. "You think you can threaten us? We'll crush your pathetic fleet, your colonies, your home world. You've got no idea what you're starting." The ambassador raised an eyebrow. "Funny, I was about to say the same to you. Check your sensors. We've got ships parked near every founding species home world, yours included. Just in case." The room went dead quiet again, the weight of his words sinking in. The Thaler delegate bubbled nervously. "You're bluffing," it said, but its voice shook. "No primitive species could hide that kind of power from us." "Primitive?" The ambassador almost laughed. "We've been playing nice for 60 years, smiling, nodding, letting you think we're dumb. But here's the thing, we didn't hide it because we're scared. We hid it because we didn't want to scare you. Guess that's over now." The Horvath delegate finally found its voice, though it cracked. "This is treason," it sputtered. "You can't just waltz in here and blow up our stuff. We'll form a coalition, wipe you out before you can blink." "Try it," the ambassador said, turning to face it. "But you might want to ask the Krezar how that's working out for them so far." He nodded at the screen, where the molten remains of the satellite still glowed a silent warning. The Fenrix, ever the stickler, waved a tablet. "This violates Section 529, Paragraph 12, no unapproved weapons in Union space. We'll sanction you, isolate you." "Good luck enforcing that," the ambassador cut in. "Your rules only work if we play along. We're done with that." The chamber buzzed with tension, but not everyone was on the same page. A new voice piped up, a slick, blue-skinned Regin, its tentacles wrapped around a data orb. "Wait," it said, its tone calculated. "This demonstration is impressive, but it's just one trick. How do we know you've got more? Maybe this is all you've got, a scare tactic." The ambassador's lips twitched into a half smile, but his eyes stayed cold. "You don't know," he said. "And that's the point. You've spent decades underestimating us, assuming we're harmless. Now you're wondering, what else are we hiding? That's a problem you created, not me." The Regin's tentacles tightened around its orb, but it didn't push back. Meanwhile, the Horvath leaned toward the Krezar commander's hologram, whispering something the translator didn't catch. The Krezar's eyes flicked to the Horvath, then back to the ambassador, a quick, conspiratorial glance that didn't go unnoticed. "Planning something?" the ambassador asked, his voice casual but sharp. "Go ahead. Make a move. See how fast we turn your little huddle into a memory." The Krezar commander snarled, its hologram glitching with anger. "You're a dead man, human. Your species is done. We'll bury you." 40,000 dead in Calyx, the ambassador interrupted, his voice rising. 25,000 in Taryn today. You don't get to play victim here. You started this. We're finishing it." The high chair raised both hands, desperate to calm things down. "Please, everyone," he croaked. "We can negotiate, find a solution. No one wants war." "Too late," the ambassador said, his gaze sweeping the room. "You had your chance. Every time you let the Krezar hit us and shrugged it off, you made this inevitable. Now you deal with the consequences." The Horvath slammed a fist or whatever it had on the table. "You won't get away with this," it yelled. "We'll rally the Union, crush you like the bugs you are." The ambassador didn't flinch. "Bugs, huh? Funny, last I checked, bugs don't wipe out satellites with a single shot. Keep talking, though. It's cute." The Regent spoke again, its tone colder now. "If you've got ships everywhere, why not use them already? Maybe you're not as strong as you pretend." "Maybe," the ambassador said, shrugging. "Or maybe we're giving you one last shot to back off before we stop pulling punches. Your call." The chamber was a powder keg now, anger, fear, and doubt clashing in the air. The Krezar and Horvath traded more hushed words, their eyes darting. The Thaler shrank back, its tentacles trembling. The Fenrix clutched its tablets like a shield. And the ambassador stood there, unflinching, as the galaxy's power players realized they'd poked a bear they didn't understand and it was awake now. 3 days after the satellite demo, the Vega station chamber was still a mess of shouting and side-eyed glances. The ambassador had walked out after his warning, leaving the Union scrambling to figure out what humanity was really capable of. The Krezar, though, weren't waiting around. They'd taken the demo as a dare, not a deterrent. Intercepted comms later showed their logic: hit Earth itself, wipe out the human home world, and watch the colonies collapse. They figured the ambassador's big talk was a bluff, that one fancy weapon was all humanity had up its sleeve. They were wrong. The Krezar strike fleet jumped out of hyperspace right in Earth's backyard, 8 massive warships, each a hulking slab of armor and guns, built to turn planets into ash. No warning, no forms filed this time, just pure, brute force. From the ground, it looked like the sky was tearing open, those ships blotting out the sun. But here's the thing, Earth didn't scramble fighters or fire back. No orbital cannons, no missile swarms. Just a quiet, blue-green ball hanging there, like it didn't notice the death squad overhead. Back on Vega Station, the Union Council was glued to a live feed, patched in from their monitoring arrays. The high chair's gravity disk wobbled as he watched, his ancient hands trembling. The Horvath delegate smirked, its gas suit puffing up again. "Look at that," it said, voice dripping with glee. "You're big, bad Earth's about to eat it. Where's your fancy tech now, human?" The ambassador, back in the chamber after a short trip to Earth, leaned against a wall, sipping coffee from a plain mug. He didn't say a word, just watched the screens with a look that said he wasn't worried. That freaked some of them out more than the fleet did. Then it happened. Earth's atmosphere twitched like a shiver running through the air. A swarm of microscopic drones, too small for the naked eye, erupted from the planet's surface. Billions of them, a cloud of nanotech that hit the Krezar ships like a storm. No beams, no explosions, just a silent takedown. The warship's guns powered down mid-charge. Engines sputtered out. NAV systems locked up, spitting random coordinates. In 4 minutes flat, 8 of the Krezar's best hung there, dead in orbit, useless hunks of metal floating like junkyard scraps. The chamber went nuts. The high chair's disk nearly crashed into a table. The Thaler bubbled so hard it popped a tentacle seam, leaking methane. The Fenrix dropped all 7 tablets, stammering, that's impossible." The Horvath suit deflated again, its jaw hanging open. The Krezar rep, a new one, not the commander from before, stared at the feed, mandibles limp, like it couldn't process what just happened. The ambassador set his mug down with a soft clink. "We call it the planetary immune system," he said, casual as if he was talking about the weather. "Cooked it up after our 4th World War. Pretty handy, right?" The Regin, still clutching its data orb, floated forward, its blue skin paling. "How?" it demanded, voice tight. "How do you hide that kind of tech? We've scanned your planet, your ships, everything." 5,000 years of war," the ambassador said, shrugging. "You learn a few tricks. We didn't show it off because we don't hand loaded guns to strangers. Basic survival. But you kept pushing, so here we are." The Krezar rep snapped out of its daze, slamming a claw on the table. "This is war," it roared. "You'll pay for this, every last one of you." "War." The ambassador turned to it, eyes narrowing. "You brought 8 dreadnoughts to our doorstep. We didn't fire a shot, just turned your toys off. If this was war, you'd be dust already." The chamber split fast. The Thaler and a few others started whispering, throwing nervous glances at the ambassador like they were ready to switch sides. The Horvath and Krezar huddled up, their voices low but furious, clearly plotting something nasty. The Regin stayed neutral, its tentacles twitching as it crunched numbers on its orb. The high chair tried to play peacemaker again. "Please," he croaked, "we can de-escalate, talk this out." "No," the Horvath cut in, its suit inflating with rage. They've humiliated us. We hit back now. Rally the fleets, crush them before they pull another stunt. The ambassador smirked. Go for it. See how far you get before your ships end up like those. He nodded at the screen, where the Krezar fleet still floated, powerless. The Thaler delegate raised a shaky tentacle. Maybe we should listen to them, it said, voice quivering. They didn't destroy the ships, just stop them. That's mercy, right? Mercy. The Krezar rep spun on it, mandibles snapping. They are mocking us. You want to bow to these monkeys? Pathetic. They've got ships everywhere, the Thaler shot back, gaining a little spine. You saw the satellite. Now this? What's next? The regent chimed in, cold and analytical. They've got us guessing. That's their real weapon, uncertainty. We don't know their limits, and that's why we're fighting among ourselves already. The ambassador watched the chaos unfold, saying nothing. The Union was cracking, some ready to deal, others itching for a fight they couldn't win. The Horvath glared at him, its gas suit trembling. You think you're untouchable? It snarled. We'll find a way, blow that smug look off your face. Doubt it, the ambassador said, picking up his mug again. But I'll give you points for trying. The Krezar rep leaned forward, its voice a low growl. This isn't over, human. We'll burn your world, your people, everything. Funny, the ambassador replied, taking a sip. That's what your fleet thought. How'd that work out? The chamber was a battlefield now, yelling, threats, and shaky alliances forming in real time. The ambassador stood calm in the middle of it, letting them tear each other apart. Earth had shown its teeth, and the galaxy was reeling. Whatever came next, one thing was clear, the rules had changed and not everyone was ready to play by the new ones. The Vega Station chamber was a shouting match, Krezar and Horvath delegates barking threats, Thaler and Regent arguing back, the high chairs pleased drowned out in the noise. The ambassador watched it all, coffee mug still in hand, his calm a stark contrast to the chaos. Earth had just turned the Krezar's fleet into orbiting scrap without breaking a sweat, and the Union was unraveling. He'd seen enough. Setting the mug down, he stepped forward and cleared his throat. The room didn't quiet down until he slammed a fist on the table, the bang cutting through the racket like a gunshot. Listen up, he said, his voice steady but loud. We're done here. Earth's pulling out of the Union effective immediately. The chamber froze. The high chair's gravity disk wobbled, his jaw dropping. What? He sputtered. You just proved you're stronger than anyone thought. Why leave? The ambassador shrugged, his eyes cold. Because we don't need you. You've spent 60 years laughing at us, letting the Krezar kill our people, hiding behind your rules. We're not begging for your respect anymore, we're taking it somewhere else. The Horvath delegate wheezed, its suit puffing up. You're bluffing. You want a seat at the table, power, reparations. That's what this is about. Nope, the ambassador said, shaking his head. We're not asking for a damn thing. No reparations, no council spot, just a door. We've got our colonies, our tech, and our own way of doing things. You're not worth the hassle. The Krezar rep's mandibles clicked fast, its voice a snarl. You think you can walk away? We'll hunt you down, burn your worlds to ash. Good luck with that, the ambassador shot back. Your fleet's still floating out there, dead in the water. Try again when you've got something that works. The regent's tentacles tightened around its orb, its tone sharp. This shifts everything. You've got us scared, why not stay and dominate? Because domination's your game, not ours, he said. We just want to live. You made that impossible, so we're out. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black device, sleek, metallic, with a single red light blinking slowly. He set it on the table, the thud echoing. Call this a parting gift, he said, stepping back. Figure out what it does. Or don't? Your choice. The room stared at it, dead silent. The Thala flinched, its tentacles curling. Is it a bomb? It whispered. The ambassador smiled just a little, no warmth. Maybe. Maybe not. That's for you to sweat over. He turned and walked out, leaving the chamber in stunned chaos. The device sat there, blinking, no hum, no heat, just a question mark. The Union scrambled to scan it, argue over it, fear it. Earth was gone, and the galaxy had no idea what came next or what that light meant. And that's the last echo of Earth humanity walking away, leaving the galaxy guessing about that mysterious device. What do you think it does? Bomb, tracker, or something crazier? Drop your theories in the comments, I read every one. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button for more HFY and sci-fi goodness on SciFi Space. Like the video, share it with your crew, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay cosmic.